Hey everybody, welcome back. So this week we're back to live. So those of you that tuned in last week with a great, was it Paul and Jeff with Aggressively Average Anglers, we definitely appreciate them being on. Although we had to kind of do it pre-recorded to kind of accommodate their schedule, which I'm more than happy to do, and to be able to bring you these really great guests that we've had here. Definitely thankful for everybody, but really thankful for this week's guest. So those of you that have been watching content on kayaks and kayak fishing and just fishing in general probably know J.T. Hickman. He runs the Fishing with Gramps YouTube channel. I've been a follower of his for a while and just kind of followed his journey. And we've been talking in kind of behind the scenes a little bit and getting to know each other. But definitely love having him on. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and bring him on. And this is going to be, I can feel it. This is going to be week 2 with no technical issues. I may have just jinxed it, but video looks good. Audio looks good. I don't see people on the side saying they can't hear me or can't see us. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it here. Gramps, how's it going, man?
Man, I am doing great. Funny thing, I've been off of YouTube for probably the last 6-8 weeks, just doing other things, taking care of life. Actually, taking a break because I've been at making content like religiously and like whole hog since the pandemic started. Yeah. And I got to the point where I think I kind of wore myself down and I needed to kick back a little bit and take some time off and just, even took a little bit of time, not fishing and doing some other things as well. But, just ran into like some fatigue issues and chilling out, but I'm back. I'm ready. I was on the water today, testing out what we're going to talk about a little bit and getting ready to get back to doing my own lives and start making content again. So just needed a little break, a little quiet time. And hey, it's a good weekend to get back to it and kick it off with a good live with y'all tonight.
Yeah, I definitely feel that because that's one thing, and I think I've said this before on previous lives, is the grind of it was something I don't know that I really knew. And of course, nobody really knows when you first get into it, obviously, but the editing and the content, and you get to a point where you're putting a lot more effort into each video, so each video needs to be kind of a banger. It needs to be something that people are searching for, people want to watch. And I get that. My purpose is not to just do videos that I want to do. It's to do stuff that people enjoy, and people are enjoying it, and we're obviously enjoying it. So before we get into some of the other stuff here, man, just tell me about yourself. What got you started in fishing, and what got you into kayaking specifically?
Well, okay, I'll go back a little bit. Into fishing, it kind of is the namesake of our channel, Fishing with Gramps. And I say our because it really refers to my brother and I. We grew up after my dad got out of the military in a small town in southern Indiana that runs along the White River. And my grandfather, he would take us out doing some, crappie and bluegill fishing here and there. He liked to fly fish, but old school, cane poles and whatnot in the creeks. And it's just something that we got started with. And I think as my brother and I grew into, got towards teenage years, my grandpa would give us each like a bait caster, the old Johnson bait casting reels, the good old green machines. Yeah. And we'd hop on our bikes and go down to the river. And it seems like for the first time that one of us caught a largemouth bass, then it's been a life of chasing the next bigger green fish wherever we could find it. Throughout the years, I dabbled in it and I played with it. My brother actually was kind of serious about it. We were both in the Army, and at some point when he was in, he kind of got into the whole tournament thing, and he ended up getting out of the Army. He was in Texas, and he ended up actually being a guide on Lake Fork for a good while. And he kind of drugged me back into fishing some team tournaments with him and stuff like that. And, I just like to fish. I've never been like the pro tournament type dude like he was. Mm-hmm. I'd be on the back of the boat throwing a spinnerbait or a jig and just, doing my thing, having a good old time, and, riding along. But, many moons later, we were a little older, had kids and whatnot. And I got to the point where I was putting too much time into the tournament thing and, raising kids, full-time job, so forth and so on. And I remember the last actual bass tournament I ever fished was a red man, and stormed all weekend. We'd been down there pre-fishing all week. I get home and I'm grumbly because we didn't do anything, didn't catch, it was a horrible tournament, and you come home and rah, 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 and my wife's like, you got a lot of nerve, mister. I'm like, what? She's like, you've been on vacation all week and you're coming home acting like this, acting a fool. And I was like, well, thunderstorms, we had a bad. She's like, you were on vacation. She says, you spend all your time fishing and your own kids don't even know how to fish. And that hit home. So I stopped the whole tournament thing, started coaching Little League, started getting more involved in the kids' sports, started taking them fishing, the banks and this and that. And they grew up, enjoying the sport that I really loved, that I had turned into work and wasn't enjoying like I should have been. So, many moons go by and I, raised the kids and a little low fishing boat and this and that. And at some point when the boys were teenagers, we found this little lake here on the Navy base that I work at and couldn't get a boat in there, but kayaks work like a champ. So my boys in their teenage years, you're talking 15, 20 years ago, we were out there in our blue and red Walmart specials paddling away. And I think actually today I posted a picture of Shane in one of our red Walmart kayaks. And this was like the weekend after he came back from Afghanistan.
Okay.
This was his first fishing trip back to Afghanistan. And he goes out and catches a 4.5 pounder. But, that was still many, many moons ago. But we kind of got into kayak fishing just because we couldn't get a boat in this place where we wanted to go fish. Now, where I got into more where we're at today is when the pandemic hit. Well, they wouldn't even let us go on base to fish because, nobody knew what was going on. They didn't want gate guards being exposed to people coming on base. And so, at that time I had sold my boat and was taking my kayak out to a local lake. And then I get out there and I see 3 other dudes with kayaks coming in, all rigged out. And I'm like, man, you guys are all decked out. What you fish? Oh, we just got to finish a kayak tournament. Oh, what?
Yeah.
A kayak tournament. And yeah, that's how we got into kayaks and all this and that. Now, where Fishing with Gramps came from is I had a friend of ours who was a single mom. She remembered going fishing with her dad, and she's got a little boy now. She remembered she loved spending that time with her dad, and she liked catching fish. She just didn't know anything about it. And she's like, hey, I know you like to dabble on, making some videos with you and your boys fishing and whatnot. Will you put up some like how-to videos and teach us how to fish? And that's what we kind of did. We kind of renamed the channel because I think it was like J.T. Hickman something, back then. And I dedicated the channel to my grandfather who got us into fishing, and that's where Fishing with Gramps came from. And we started some simple how-tos, this and that, and then 3-4 years, 300 videos, 32,000 folks later, this thing has blown up into something that I never would have, seen 1,000 subscribers. Just, starting some basic how-tos and then going from there. It's been a wild, learn and ride. And unlike most, I'm not really trying to grow a YouTube channel. I'm the guy who makes a video, just throws it out there and hey, whatever I'm doing this week is what I'm making a video about. If I think it's something somebody can get something out of, I'll make a video out of it. I keep saying I'm gonna start making the videos that I like to watch, which is like John B, Craig Blanchard, just going fishing and showing what it is that we love about being outdoors. Someday I'll get there, but it's been wild. It's a fun platform. You meet some of the coolest and greatest people because kayak anglers in general are just about the most laid back, cool people that I've ever run into.
It's definitely a welcoming niche for sure. Definitely a welcoming group. I get a lot of people, mostly locally here, because there's a couple of groups that do kayak tournaments here locally, and one of them specifically, they're called Twin Lake Kayak Anglers because we have a lot of lakes around here. We also have a lot of great rivers as well, and they're really good at getting newcomers in. And so typically your newcomer, when they hear tournament, they're thinking, why would I want to compete on something I know very little or nothing about?
Yep.
And it's really not about that. It's about getting together. It's about community. It's about fellowship, getting out there, and learning some things, because some of those guys have been out there for decades fishing, whether it be from a kayak or a boat or all of the above, offshore, inshore. And it's the best way to get people into the sport.
Yep.
And some groups get it. You know, there's a few of them obviously out there that don't, but overall majority, they get that, because they are the boots on the ground ambassadors for this sport. And that's what got me into the YouTube, was, you know, trying to get as accurate as information as I can. Obviously, you know, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but you know, getting stuff out there, because people see these guys fishing from these decked out kayaks, like you said. That's very influential, and they don't know where to start. So that's kind of what got me into it. But yeah, like you said, it's been a wild ride.
It's kind of funny, because you actually hit on a subject of a very near future video, because I have a running list that's probably 2 pages long of video ideas and things that I'm going to do eventually between fishing videos. And one of those is why I like to tournament fish. And a lot of that, again, especially like in the single day tournament things, it's a great way to meet other kayak anglers, because the more you meet, like in your area or in your state or even in your region, you just made a whole bunch of new fishing buddies, and you found a whole bunch of new different places that you can go fish by meeting up with other people and just hitting the water, you know, and doing your own thing outside of the tournaments.
That's something to call.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way, and even the online stuff, because it leads to the bigger things like the KBF National Championship, the Bassmaster Series, and a lot of people see those and like, oh, those guys are all pros. Well, you know where I met Guillermo Gonzalez, Christine Fisher, Chad Hoover, Gene Jensen, you know, Russ, the people I call friends now.
Yeah.
Why? Because I just, you know, did what I had to do to kind of qualify and go fish these events. I'm not trying to win. I just want to go meet other people and hang out. And you know, it's an opportunity you would never get to do if you didn't go try to do things like that too. So, you know, we all try to do what we have to scrape our way in. And you know, but the cool thing is I can call any of these guys up on the phone at any time and ask questions and get help and advice. And they know I'm not, you know, they're trying to take money out of their, I'm the guy putting the money in the kitty for them, actually. But, you know, it's fun because, hey, you never know. What if you go someplace and have the best day of your life, and someday you're holding a trophy that you never thought you would see? Absolutely. You know, it's cool to dream. I see my son, who just tried to call me, popped in the popped in the comments there. Yeah, sorry, Hunter. That's why I didn't answer your call. Yeah. There's my brother Jeremy. So yeah, I see you got a lot of the fishing fam in the chat tonight. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely fun too. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing I love about, you know, even meeting up and you know, we started fishing with Gramps as a way to kind of teach people, and then it's kind of moved into, and I did a lot of, when I partnered with like American Legacy Fishing and Monster Bass and Luz and Strike King, things like that. You know, I started talking about products and things that they use, because I became partners with them because they make stuff that I, you know, I like to use. You know, spending a year with the Old Town Pro staff was one of the best honors of my life. I mean, you look at any big tournament trail series out there, you see some of the guys that I used to be on a team with, not at their level, but I mean, I shared a jersey with a lot of guys who won a lot of, you know, big championships and titles and things like that. And it was a really cool thing. But it's just it's a fun way of kind of sharing with you techniques and you know, all kinds of different stuff that you like. And you know, that's led to a lot of us getting together. And even where Fishing with Gramps is now blossom into like Freedom Squad Fishing, which is a bunch of us veterans that got together, and, you know, first responders and, you know, patriots, basically kind of sharing what we love and starting our own fishing community that we're working on growing that as well. So, you know, it's
tell us a little bit about Freedom Squad. What was the creation? What led to the creation of Freedom Squad, or where did it come from? And
sure,
talk about what your mission is, so to speak.
So a couple years ago, me, my brother, and our buddy Matt, we're all 3 disabled veterans. We like to fish together it's our recreational therapy. My brother kind of taught us this term. He spent some time in the VA domiciliary, undergoing some treatment a few years ago. And, you know, dealing with some issues he had from, basically being poisoned at Fort McClellan years ago. And then Matt, our buddy OEF5, also, he's an Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan veteran. And so we started getting together and just, doing our own little meetups and hanging out. And we were out, he does live Twitch streaming. And, we were just fishing on a pond one day and, just doing our thing. And, Matt was telling everybody, we got 3 veterans, we're out here doing our thing. And somebody in the chat was like, oh, the original, you guys are like the original Freedom Squad. And yeah, it stuck. I mean, then next thing you know, every time we see each other, Freedom Squad. And that's the 3 of us were the founding members of the Freedom Squad. And every time that we travel and go fish tournaments or visit other places, we got our own jerseys and did, the whole thing there. And then we decided to open it up as a fishing community. And, it was just one of those things where people liked, we would, whenever we'd go fish tournaments, we didn't, like I said, we didn't care if we win, we would go do our best and wherever it happens. But then, we showed up the KBF National Championship wearing our jerseys and, it was just one of those things. We love what we do. We believe in kayak fishing as a great recreational, therapy kind of thing, very much like Heroes on the Water, which is an organization we all support, along with Mission 22 and many others. And it's just like our own version of a lot of other, organizations that are out there. It's just we're open to everybody who loves, the country and no politics involved. It's just you guys love America, love your first responders, military, and everybody who basically serves in some form or another, and you enjoy freedom. That's what we're all about. So it's been fun.
My stickers, so
there you go. That reminds me, I got to send somebody else out some stickers too. I forgot about too, but yeah, so that's where that came from. And we just decided, we had so many people ask about it. And it's just like, it's one of those things where we just opened it up and, Catch made a board that's got our logo on it, and Kayak Cushion's got a Freedom Squad edition, on a board, or on a kayak cushion now. And we've got somebody making jerseys for us. So it's been a blast.
Nice.
I'm going to go on a tangent just a little bit.
Be my guest.
So in the chat, they're talking about, going over and getting their kayaks rigged out. And then they said, basically it was you. And then this comment came up, and I'm going to say same with him.
Mm-hmm.
Is whenever I'm looking for something rigged out, I go straight to him. And then usually he drags me into the process. So there's that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Jeremy knows I like to experiment and play with stuff too. And, he dealing with some of the stuff that he deals with, stress is something that we manage. But, and I do that well with him and Matt both, one with PTSD, one with, anxiety and issues like that too. But, I'm a computer science, dude by nature, but I always said my second coming was I could have been an engineer. So I like to play and goof around in mods. So when I saw somebody had solved the problem with like the Newport Motors arm that they used to lift with bending, I was like, well, I'm taking mine straight out the box and doing this fix. And and so I had done that a couple of days ago. And the next thing I know, Jeremy's pulling up in the garage this morning. He's like, here's my motor. So we switched his around too, to kind of solve the problem, because he'd had some issues with his Newport, just, rolling over or, having issues with that arm. But we learned by moving that blade around to the front of the motor shaft that it actually solves the problem. And I think the guys that like dug out bait and tackle had done something. They've got this machine stuff that they've been coming up with. But yeah, I definitely like to, I almost said I like rigging kayaks. I hate rigging kayaks. I'd want to be done. I want it to be done, and I want to go fish because I'm old and I'm fat and I hate laying on the ground and getting up and down. It's like doing Pilates whenever I'm working on a kayak, and then I'm too tired to go do anything.
Just because I can do it and do it well doesn't mean I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was talking about that. Like, I think the amount of motors I've done this year far surpassed anything I've done in the last 3 or 4. And, because you're getting more and more of these coming out where they're motor focused. So, and I know what you're in right now, and we'll get into that here a little bit, but talk to me. So what was your first, talk about sponsorships.
Okay.
And sponsorships can be kind of a mixed bag of tricks I've seen. I tend to stay away from them for the most part, but just because of what I do. But talk to me about, specifically kayaks. I know you've worked with Old Town. You were kind of sliding up with Bonafide now. Who was your first one to work with? Was it Old Town or was it somebody else? Or
yeah, I mean, I don't do sponsorships because I mean, having a fishing background, even to the point where someday we could have went and been sponsored. Sponsored most of the time means somebody's paying you to do things for them. And I call everything I do with my channel a partnership. So I will work with folks where I may get a discount. I will trade my time for, for stuff that maybe they can help me out with. So I've never had anybody pay me to make content, even though, I mean, it's been offered more than once. I have a good full-time job. I'm an IT security guy. I've been doing the same thing since 1986. I did that for 10 years when I was in the Army, and then I did it, full-time. And oddly enough, I'm finishing my career working for the Department of the Army as the information security manager. And it's just, kind of what I do. But I've had people offer to pay me to make, videos and whatnot, and it's just not like my vibe. I work with people that I like to work with. My first actual fishing company that I work with is American Legacy Fishing here in Southern Indiana, in Evansville. They're by far for me the best rod and reel retailer. They have some baits, but not a lot. But they are known as the G Loomis Superstore. So whatever your Dobbins, just whatever brand you're looking for, if it's like a name brand and your rods and reels, that's your place. They have an awesome trade-in program. They have an elite program where it's like $50 a year and it's free shipping. You get like 10% off. There's so many benefits to it. But, for me, I have a great partnership with them. And a lot of the times what I'm asking for is like discounts for the people who follow the channel. Yeah. So in my partnership with them is they basically let me check out like a library, any rods, reels, whatever that I want to play with and do reviews on. Because a lot of times if, people are shopping for, or if they want to first look at something that, that just came out, like I was recently playing with the St. Croix, some of the new rods that they came out with. And I was having a great time with them until Catfish snapped one, halfway down I was like, oh, I don't know if I really want to trust, but stuff happens. I mean, we've seen it all the time. But, the fact that they let me play with whatever I want on a demo basis and, they give me some discounts when I buy things too, but they also offer the people who, punch in Gramps 10 can save money. And if you're spending money on like a $500 rod, even 10% starts to add up, so, but I mean, and it's been an honest, fun, and they're like local to me. They're 90 minutes away. So it's been a great partnership is what I call it. Because again, I'm not a paid employee, and and the best thing I love about that is I'm not roped into any one brand. I can play with anything that I want. I've got a mix of Lew's, Daiwa, Shimano. The funny thing is, I think I've only got like 2 rods checked out. Most of my own personal gear is higher end stuff now because as I've aged and starting to prepare for retirement. I'm taking advantage of some of those, trade-ins and sales and things like that to kind of build my own arsenal up into a little higher end because arthritis sucks and I like fishing with quality stuff. But that doesn't mean I still don't, talk about Lew's and SLX lines of rods, from top to bottom is where I try to, give some honest first opinions because I don't have a dog in the fight for any one brand. I mean, I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And honestly, that's kind of what I say.
That's just kind of important for me to ask you that question because a lot of people starting out in YouTube, that's almost the goal. I feel like with some people is they want to get sponsored. They want to, it's nothing against them. It's just they're wanting to start to benefit financially and then, try to eventually work to where they're doing it full time maybe. But it's a double-edged sword because sponsorship, it's not just somebody paying you money to make videos and you get to just do whatever you want to.
Yeah.
That was one thing that we talked with last week with aggressively average anglers is, yeah, they're doing, they got sponsorships and they want to do certain videos, or their subscribers want them to do a video, but they've got to get these videos out because this sponsor is wanting, hey, we got to get, videos coming out for these tournament series or this product. And you find yourself on the clock, so to speak. And, that's one thing I would personally never want to get into. Again, I'm talking about just what I do is if I'm locked into one brand, well, I'm only doing that one brand. Now, if that brand's hot, that's one thing, but I don't want to be known as the Hobie guy or the Bonafide guy or the Jackson guy.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of great stuff and it cycles. So the hot brand one year, maybe the stagnant brand in a couple of years, and then the next company comes out, and that's what I've seen, just at least in the kayak space, is it's doing this. Somebody comes out with something, somebody tries to up it or get to that level, and then somebody else comes from over here, and essentially it's still the same, really what I call quality 4 companies. But they're really pushing each other, and some you kind of wonder about, like, okay, what's happening with this company, and they may be working on something in the shadows that just comes over the top of everything. But and kayak industry is kind of in a state of transition right now.
And I, honestly, if I'm going to be like a YouTubing dude, I want to play with all the things. I want to have opinions. I want to if somebody honestly, and I took it seriously when I started making like big guy videos, because I was a 350-pound disabled vet with limited mobility and low fitness level. I mean, that one video I did when we talked about earlier, that breathing hard was not only from anxiety, but it was just, it was part of being out of shape. And if I'm going to put another disabled veteran who maybe even, more jacked up in places and ways than I am, because it's easy to say, well, you're just an old fat guy, you should sit home and couch, play video games. Well, that's how you get diabetes, and that's how you get even bigger, and that's how you wilt away and, lose the battle that everybody is constantly fighting. And getting off the couch, getting outdoors, getting some sunshine so you can go to work with funny sunglass marks on your face because half of you is red and half of you as white as you can get. I decided myself that I wanted to change my own, because even though I'm not a war veteran, I served in the 80s and 90s during the Cold War, but my father's a Vietnam vet. My son is an Afghanistan vet. I got more friends that I can count that have been deployed more times than they know what to do with. I'm here for them. I'm not here for me to talk about me being a disabled veteran. I'm talking about me working and getting others out so they don't wilt away and fade and lose the battle once they get back home. If I can make a difference in one person's life, then I will do this until the day that I die, because it's something that I believe in. And I think it's something that's helping. And the more, me and Chad Hoover actually, and several of us now have a saying, and it's each one reach one. And that's why we fish in the Catch 22. That's why the Freedom Squad participates in the kayak bass fishing, Catch 22 program. And it's all under the Fish Ops blanket. And what Fish Ops stands for is Fish Operation Prevent Suicide. And that's where, sure, KBF is known for tournament stuff and this and that too, but there is a veteran supporting aspect to all that, because Chad is a combat veteran, and many of the people that fish in KBF and a lot of the other places are as well. So where we reach out.
And I'm sorry, real quick, those that are listening that don't know, talk about the story of the 22. I'm familiar with it, but those that don't know, kind of explain what the 22 is.
So a lot of people see like either Mission 22 or 20. There's always 22 a day. I think at the VA in a study, 10 years ago, came out and said that 22 veterans a day claim their own lives in veteran suicide.
Yeah.
And and a lot of people associate that with the current wars, but a lot of that is Vietnam veterans or veterans of other times and periods. And, they weren't getting help. The VA for the longest time was pretty useless. And there was a lot of people that struggled with a lot of things for many years, and mental health and PTSD. It just takes so many lives. So 22 is a number that is often referenced in this. I mean, hopefully we start making a difference and making some changes and start reducing that number.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd love to talk about the day where things are 0, but for now, the 22 seems to be just like it's kind of like 911. That's what that number means to a lot of people. So, yeah, there's a tough way to translate it to a lot of people, like Michael said in the chat, to civilians. But it's just one of those things where we're building basically a support network, and the first thing to do is talk about it, because if you never talk about veteran suicide, then it still goes unnoticed, unknown. And the more we can get it out there, the more we can bring it to the forefront and get people to say, don't rub, we were all taught, a lot of us are Gen Xers, and we know that, rub some dirt on it. Men don't bend, men don't break, be a man up.
Yeah.
I saw one the other day and I almost posted it, because it's oddly enough, it's Men's Mental Health Month as well. And, it's when we say man up, now it's time to put that aside and say, get help and, seek that. So that's where 22 comes in. And, there's a lot of people that still have a lot of problems at the VA, but every time I go to the VA now, because I'm 70% disabled veteran, I get my full health care from the VA, even though I work for the government, and have good insurance through that. I still bypass what the better stuff that I could be getting if I wanted to, and I still go to the VA so I can come back out and make videos to other guys that may not have that option, that are only stuck with the VA. If I'm going to the VA on purpose and say, hey, it's getting better, I'm getting better treatment, I've got awesome doctors, if I'm making that testimony out to other people, that maybe somebody will see that and go get some help that they need. And again, each one reach one. If we just reach one person, and I've told my brother this many times. I've had times where I got burned out and I was like, I'm tired of doing YouTube and this and that. And it seems like every one time that I do that, somebody will walk up to me at a tournament. And this happened at the national championship. Hey man, I started watching your videos. I love what you say when you talk about, the veterans and, your sons and all this stuff. And it's got me into fishing, and, you saved my life. And I'm like,
that's powerful.
It punches you. And then I'll get private messages. I got, like, the first one I ever got, I remember, was like 2 years ago. And it's probably towards the end of COVID. The guy was a police officer, lived over in Ohio. He started taking his daughter fishing in the retention pond in their neighborhood. And he said the bond that they were able to build, because he was able to teach her out there, and he put the worm on her bobber and she'd catch a fish. And then if she caught one before he did, and, but these stories, and I've probably got like 50 or 100 of them from people just, they've heard me say something on the live stream or something mentioned in a video. And I don't think about half this. Just whatever I say when I'm on the water is what I say.
Yeah.
But, just talking about it, sometimes it was just something you said reached somebody in some way and made a difference. And, then they come back and tell you about it. And it's, it's funny, but it's just like, I had a case like 3 times in a row since the national championship where 3 different people, and my brother's like, God's telling you not to quit, bro. He said, if you need a break, take a break, but what you're doing is working. And the fact that I have Jeremy and then I have Matt out there to kind of, bring their experiences and whatnot into it as well, it just, it makes a bit of a difference too. But it's been wild. But my grandfather, who the channel is named for, was a Baptist minister, and he reached people in his own way. And I just think it's kind of funny how God works, that my brother and I are both doing the same kind of work and just a little bit different method. Being out God's creation on, 2 or 3 times on a weekend if we get a chance. And because people think fishing YouTubers fish all the time. Oh no. We fish a little bit, and we spend all the rest of our time editing to try to, make it look like we fish a lot.
That is so true. I'm going to speak on this because, you know, we're in the kayak store more than anything, right? So everyone's like, oh yeah, you guys go kayak all the time. We haven't been kayaking in like, it's been probably a month.
Yeah. That full-time work, especially this time of year in a kayak store, it's real. But I enjoy it. So like, you know, I'm definitely not looking for pity on that. I sell plastic boats for a living, and I make YouTube videos on the side. So my job, I've definitely been underappreciated and overworked and underpaid before. That I'm not at that place right now, so I'm definitely thankful for where I'm at. But man, and we were talking about, and I know this is an extreme 180 here. You were talking about the tan lines. I want her to talk about her tan lines and how they get. So I'm gonna let you talk about it.
Oh man. Okay. So I go out in the sun and I'm darker. I'm a shade darker in about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So 2 years ago, I started off with pants that were down to my ankle one day, and then they went mid-calf, and then they went knee, and then they went to shorts, and he called me a candy cane.
Yeah, because that's exactly what it looked like. And then the whole year, she was constantly trying to get that to even out. And she's not a high maintenance woman whatsoever, but like she said, she's got maybe darker in the middle and then lighter on the foot and then like darker. And like it literally, the 3 levels. And every time she get out in the sun, the darker would get darker, the lighter would get just a little darker. It was a catch-22 the whole year. And that was really when she first got into fishing, and she really enjoyed it. So, you know, and again, like you say, you know, teaching someone how to fish, it's seeing that progression. So going from, you know, you're baiting their hook, you're tying their knots, you're telling them what work and where to throw and things like that. And then, you know, after a while, you know, they're watching videos on how to tie a hook, you know, how to tie a knot, and they're tying their knot. And then like, I remember the first fish she caught, I kind of, you know, we're fishing together and I'm just kind of giving some pointers. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go in this little cove here and then you can kind of fish here. And then all of a sudden I just hear this, help. And she had a largemouth hooked, and I like, that's awesome. It was the first time because I was worried that, you know, she's going to get skunked or just, it was going to get really hot and miserable. And, you know, you're wondering, okay, is the juice really worth the squeeze? And catching that first fish. And then, you know, it seemed like every time we go out, she'd break her PB, and, you know, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you know, I enjoy that. Of course, obviously my wife loves to fish. So as more fish she catches, that means I get to go more.
Oh,
you know, when she's telling me, like, hey, you want to go fishing? I'm like, yes. So
every time I will never say no.
Yeah. We don't look in, you know, she don't look at shoes. She wants to go look at fishing tackle. We've got enough plastics in the garage to probably fish for the next 5 years and not run out of anything. So.
Yeah, my wife will get out in the kayak about twice a year. She doesn't need the seat. She will be out there in her bathing suit, sleeping, reading a book.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. You know, I'll leave her if I'm fishing in a cove. I'll put her in the middle of it. If she gets over towards the bank, I'll get a whistle and go back over and then haul her back out into the middle again. You know, and then sometimes she just likes paddling around. You know, but she don't care about fishing. You know, she grew up in Minnesota. She's fished out, as she says it.
Yeah.
And you know, but she likes being outdoors when she gets out there, not when she's not spending all of her time with the grandbabes. But as they get a little older, then, you know, I'll have the little fisher gals out there too. And I have a boat just for them too. So I don't make much content in the boat, but sometimes there'll be some bluegill and crappie caught, and you know, that's when I'm Grampy and not Gramps, because that's what they call me. And then and then my oldest granddaughter discovered me on YouTube someday. She's like, I'm just going to call you Gramps. I'm like, no. But it's a blast.
Okay. You just touched on something I've got to ask. Mm-hmm. If you could only catch 2 different fish species for the rest of your life, what 2 would you want to catch?
Largemouth and smallmouth.
Huh?
Say again.
Largemouth and smallmouth. That's all.
I I can get behind that one.
Yeah, believe it or not, you're the first person to say largemouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to Gene Jensen and Alex Rudd and all that, and I'm always surprised because it's not that it's a wrong answer. It just I'm expecting them to say, oh, largemouth, because most of their content is based off of that. But reds and river trout and pike. Obviously, it depends on where you're at. But yeah,
my whole life has been in pursuit of the next biggest bass of either species, or either bronze or green. For most of my life, it's always been about green, and not so much that I've gone down and gone like on a charter in Florida to try to break my PB, or go back to Texas, or I've been down to Guntersville a few times, hoping to get lucky and catch that next bigger bass. But it's been since 1997, the year after I got out of the Army. I caught my biggest largemouth on the bank at Lake Fork on a Terminator spinnerbait, which was 8 pounds, 876.
Okay.
Wow.
And then here in Indiana, a year later, my Indiana largemouth PB was like a 6.7 pound. I was actually fishing in a club tournament out of the back of somebody else's boat on that one. But never have caught a big smallmouth. But I find that I got on this smallmouth kick last year, because the funny thing is, Indiana is like the black hole of fishing. We have the best average fish in the state. Once or twice a year, you might catch a 5 or 6 pounder. Now the guys that fish tournaments every weekend, they'll catch 5 and 6 pounders a little more, regularly. But that's about the average big fish around here. Okay. Now you go farther north, smallie galore, 6, 7 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
I say this living, and I don't know if you saw my live stream on the state record holder who caught the Indiana record smallmouth bass, 8 pounds at the lake that I'm 30 minutes south of, that I absolutely hate to fish. Because I fish out of a kayak and it just gets beat up by every boat. If Bassmaster, Bass Nation, if any of them are coming through here, they're fishing on this lake. But we never even knew that there was actually smallies in this place. And this dude catches an 8-pound giant out of there. Now, there's been 8, 9-pound bass caught out of that lake. Yeah. But for the most part, your average big fish each year is 5 or 6 pounds. And that can go the same way as far as smallies go on the rivers up on the north part of the state. Because Indiana is one of these, it's this wide and this tall.
Yeah.
And it's, just kind of the nature of it. So you have extremes on either end. And I kind of like live in the lower middle of the state. So it's like we're just the land of average. So I have to go way south if I want to catch a big largemouth, or 5 hours north if I want to catch a big smallie. But that's going to be kind of the goal this year, is to try to catch some of those bigger fish and, go have some more fun chasing smallies, because in the creeks that I grew up in around here, you'll catch smallies, but they're like maybe a pound, which, hey, they're fun. They're flying out of the water, but I never knew there was any such thing as a 5-pound smallmouth bass. And still I started kind of traveling around. I was like, these people are catching giants either north of me or south of me, but nothing like around here. So
it's the same here. The lake, I mean, there are some big fish out there, but you're not going to get a limit of, 5 and 6 pounders or higher. There's obviously some big ones out there, but we have 2 very large lakes. And, there's people that, they know the patterns and all that, but my personal best, my top 2 largemouth bass were caught in a creek.
Yeah.
And one of them was a creek, and then the other one was a channel that comes off the Arkansas River. And, the sad part is those 2 fish. Now, the first fish, I didn't have a camera. I didn't have anything. I didn't have nothing. It was just me and her on the bank. And then it was, I don't want to say it was May or June.
It was May.
And we're catching, we're in a creek that's known for just amazing smallmouth bass fishing. And we're pulling out some big fish in this little area. There's some current, there's a little calm pocket there where, some sludge was kind of gathering up, and we're pulling some decent, 15, 16 inchers. And then all of a sudden, I'm fishing Ned rig, like little small profile baits. I've kind of got them rigged weedless a little bit so I don't, snag on something. And I just kind of throw it in there, and all of a sudden I thought I got caught, and I've got a little light tackle spinning rod, and I'm just I'm like, oh, and I tell her like, this thing's a tank, and then I'm bringing it up, and it's flipping up, and then I brought it up, and I'm holding this thing up here. I'm just looking at her. I was like, it was fat, large, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff. Like I'm putting it on my arm. I'm using my arm as my own catch board. So I'm just trying to, go home and measure where it came out with. And I think it was about 22, 23 inches. But then we went down to that channel off the Arkansas. It was last year. And it's the picture you see of me like on the Wendell Fishing podcast. Like I'm holding up this fish, and that was caught in about 1.5 foot of water, maybe 5 foot in front of me, from the bank. And we're just throwing crankbaits in this little channel. And then all of a sudden caught that large one, caught a big one the day before. And then literally the next cast at that big one caught, I guess, hubby that was sitting right next to her. And it's funny. I always tell people when you catch that PB, no matter where it is, whether it's on the lake or the river, you find yourself going back to that same exact spot, trying to recreate that magic. Yep. Whether it's a lake access or a little cove, you always remember that one spot. Like that's where I caught that one. And then you're chasing the same fish, but it's you kind of forget the rule about covering more ground and movements, because they don't just sit there the whole time. And we've gone back to that same spot like half a dozen times and caught nothing.
Yep, that's the way it goes. Sometimes you were meant to catch that fish that day.
Yep, and I'm thankful for it.
Oh, and the second time he caught the fish, also did not have a catch board.
Yeah, she had to run back up to the car to get the camera.
Yeah.
I gotta learn.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It'll be the days that you don't, and that's what I say, because normally I try to make sure I have a camera running, but some days I just go fish, and it's generally my luck if I say I'm not filming anything that day, and I catch a giant, then I'm out here trying to stretch my phone out as far as possible to squeeze an Instagram photo in, and just because I wasn't running cameras that day. But, I generally like to do it because, I'll get on the water, and if the wind ain't blowing, I'll just talk. And then, it always ends up being in a video somewhere. So,
yeah. So, we got on a little bit there, but so you moved on to Old Town, and then, and that's kind of where, when I started watching your videos is, you were in the autopilot.
Yep.
And, and I actually reached out to you and Chad both when the store I work at, I was trying to kind of get feelers out to getting Old Town in. And so I reached out to you and then reached out to Chad also. And you guys both gave me the same name there. So tell me about your experience with Old Town, because I know a lot of people that watch my videos are very interested. They almost have a cult-like following.
Yeah. I mean, I started in, so the boys started in a couple different Walmart brands. I started in it was like an Angler 144 from Future Beach.
Yeah.
As I kind of, goofed around in this and that, I was looking for something with a little, more stability, a little, could hold a little better. I wasn't losing any weight by any means back then. And so I actually got into an Old Town topwater. Was the first one that I got that I was like, okay, now I'm in a fishing kayak. And I caught it on sale, I can't remember if it was Moving Waters at the, and I didn't know anything about, supporting kayak shops and things like this. And, I found it in some store that was having like an end of season closeout. And I was like, oh, I'm going to buy this kayak. Why not? And, you get an Old Town Sportsman 106 for like $600. I was like, man, this is a great deal. I got to do it, And I paddled in that thing for probably the first year and a half, 2 years that I was doing like Heroes on the Water tournaments. And that's kind of where I found the tournament scene after, meeting the guys at the Grubby and whatnot. But I wanted to support Heroes on the Water because they took my brother, the guys at his Dom, they took those guys out fishing as part of the recreational therapy. So I was like, didn't know anything about catch, photo, release, but that's how I learned. And so I started in that sportsman paddle. Well, eventually I was like, man, this is really cool. And I did some videos on it. And then the next year I was like, well, paddling's cool, but they got pedal kayaks. And so I saved up and I got the pedal kayak, and that was the 106 PDL. And I mean, that kayak did everything that I could ever want in a kayak. I thought that was cool. That's the one I started fishing, like the grassroots bass yakking tournaments around here. They're a real big tournament trail here in Indiana. I mean, I think we're in 18 or 20 different lakes, and then like 2 or 3 different river series kind of things. And I knew I wanted to pedal drive. I wanted to be able to cover more water. And I love that thing. It was the greatest thing ever. And during the time I'd been making content, and I loved Old Town, and I'd made so many videos about Old Town Kayaks because I completely trusted them. I had been thrown by thunderstorms and whatever, and I completely trusted everything. And so at some point I reached out, and I think Old Town a couple years ago was doing like an open call or open enrollment for, if you wanted to apply to join their pro staff. And I was like, well, who better than me? I mean, I've been advocating for Old Towns. I'd probably sold 50, 60, 70 of them. I mean, half of my fishing fam that follows me are in Old Towns because they see me fish out of Old Towns for so long. And then, I applied for it, and shockingly, they brought me, and I see Tweezy in the chat here. They brought me and Tweezy into the Old Town family at the same time. And so we were like the 2 Indiana Old Town guys. He still is, because he loves his autopilot just like I always have. And then I got an autopilot that year. And I bought an autopilot that year. But they, if you're one of their pro staff tournament trail guys, those guys earn kayaks. I get that. I got mine at a great price. I'll leave it at that, because we can't, I still don't disclose the terms or whatever, but you get them at a great price. I'll put it that way. And so I sold the 106 to my brother, which he's been fishing out. Well, he had been fishing out over the last couple of years. And then I went with the old autopilot because, I wanted the foot steering. I didn't realize how cool that kayak was. I mean, I heard about the spot lock and, the hand remote in the foot control. But when I'm sitting here and I can turn the pedal left and turn the remote left and do a complete 360 without moving, I'm like, this is really cool. And I absolutely love that boat, and I still recommend it to this day. I recommend all the Old Towns just because I've trusted them with my life, and I've entrusted them into the life of my brother and other people that I know. And it's a brand that I will always support. The only caveat is that goofy little collaboration they did with Berkeley I didn't really care for. But to each their own. There's some people like Fire Tiger.
Okay, I was just thinking Fire Tiger, yeah.
But I digress. I'm sure Alex would love one, or Christine, or Larry Melton Jr., who the Berkeley guys. They'll I'm sure they'll throw their little generals and enjoy the heck out of that thing. No, but they're mostly Hobie folks. I get it too. But I absolutely love that boat and everything about it. And Trevor, we didn't skip anything.
No, we're getting there.
But it's one of those. It's one of those things where it's a brand that's been around for over 100 years. Or, I mean, to this day, Ryan Lilly does one of the best jobs representing that brand thoroughly. And were there wishes that and again, I was just an influencer. I wasn't a pro angler that they have. Mm-hmm. Do I wish they would incorporate brushless motors and have, more horsepower, in their motors? But I know that's not their call either, because they can only use and get what they get from Minn Kota.
Yeah.
But, I love the fact that as part of Johnson Outdoors, if you're a Humminbird, dude, that's a great thing. I'm a Garmin guy, but I went to Humminbird to be a team player and, enjoyed it while I had it. And, it's just one of those things, and I will forever tell anybody, you can never go wrong being in an Old Town, because they make and have made quality canoes and kayaks for over 100 years, and they're an American-made brand that they get it. I mean, they really do. But I don't want to be a one-trick pony either, so things changed.
So and we'll get into the NAR thing there, but what? So you're with Old Town. What started the discussion or the thought process to maybe look at some other brands and see what else is out there? And ultimately, what drew you to Bonafide?
What started the conversation was my wanting to get more into river fishing.
Okay.
The autopilot's great, but sometimes having a front-mounted motor. I mean, I'll say this much: the motor that they have in it for the autopilot. The one thing I like about where it's at is the boat control with it, along with the rudder. And if you hit a rock while you're in a river, and trust me, I've done it plenty of times, the motor kicks up where it's at.
Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't, one of the things I ran into is if you get into any real current, that motor only goes so fast.
Yeah.
And I was out a couple of times, and we weren't dealing with a lot of flow, and I'm still learning the river terms and smally things. But I got caught in a couple of times where the current was more than that motor could handle. And a couple of times I had to paddle with everything that I had to get back up out of this current bend to where I was in safer water, because we were planning on putting back in where we put in at. We weren't doing a river float. So I knew I wanted something with some more juice. And that was one of the things that I had with Old Town. I was like, hey, when are we going to get something faster than what we've got? Because I want to river fish more. And so my wanting to learn or to expand or explore came about because I got into a bunch of smallmouth bass one day and had the best day of my life. Yeah. Fish were jumping everywhere, whopper plopper flying. I had this tournament. I think I actually finished third in this tournament, but that was my first real focusing on trying to catch smallies, and I fell in love.
That river will get you.
And that's what started it. So one of our friends who's part of the Freedom Squad, Bobby, lives up in Indy and is on the river quite a bit. He got into fishing, and smallie fishing is where he started. And then, along the way, I made friends with Josh Shrenko, who is like a smallie smasher, host of the Smallie Talk podcast, winner of the Bassmaster Kayak event at the Susquehanna River, has a bunch of 21 and 22-inch, smallies that lives up north of us, who we're going to be on the river with here pretty soon. But I knew I wanted something that was more capable of fishing the rivers. Therefore, I wanted something with a more powerful motor, so I wouldn't be stuck kind of like in the situation I was that day. And I knew Old Town wasn't going to do it. And I know Old Town, their thing is they build each of their kayaks to do what that kayak does. If it's a paddle boat, it's meant for paddling. If it's a pedal drive, it's meant to be pedaled. And if they're motorized, then it's meant to spot lock and move around and maneuver. And all three of those kayaks do all of those things wonderfully. But I wanted something with a rear motor on it. So when that Titan X came out, Gramps was like, that's the one. I can XI3 it. I can take it all off. I can pedal it. I can paddle it in a creek. I can pedal it in a creek, or I can put a rear motor on it and not have any issues. And so that was going to be the first goal. I mean, that was, to me, what it was all about. If I wanted to be on a big lake, I can throw the XI3 on it and spot lock out and play that game. I could take that off and put the rear motor on it and go into the rivers, or I can take everything off and just use the pedal drive. But it's a heavier boat, which, again, that's what I'm looking for. I'm a big dude. I need a floating boat dock. Yes. And, I don't stand and fish a lot, but I do occasionally. I got a bad left knee, but I wanted a bass boat in kayak form. And the Titan X was the one. Then Bonafide dropped the Power 129. And I was like, I don't need a pedal drive. Yeah. And I can get a boat that weighs a whole lot less. And that power was just the right thing at just the right time. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not partnered with Bonafide at all.
Yeah.
They gave us a military discount. So, we had Chad pick ours up. When I say ours, because Jeremy and I both made the move at the same time. But we wanted to focus on river stuff. But he needs a boat because he's only got one good arm. He needs a boat that he can put boondocks on. And, he's got his with the boondocks and the Torpedo because he still truck hauls. And he needs something that's light enough that he can lift in and out of the truck once he strips it down. But we wanted something that can kind of do everything. Yeah. Now, he doesn't really paddle because he's got a bad wing. But that thing is light enough if he had to paddle back somewhere, or at least to the shore where he could call for help. Yeah. He does. Now, I've played with mine because I wanted best of both worlds. If I want to be on bigger water and spot lock, I've got the XI3 with the Dakota Lithium to power it. But if I want a riverboat, now I've got my NK300, and now it's time to play on the rivers. So I've been using mine as a lake yak for the last few months. And then today was my first time because, stuff's expensive. You got to save for it. And, I sold a bunch of stuff because I did it. So I ended up with 2 different types of batteries, which are not cheap, but you budget and plan and, save away. But people ask, well, why do you spend the money on Dakota Lithium? Because I want something I know I can trust. It's a name that's been out there, and I know there's other cheaper and in various.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I know use Dakota Lithium, Russ Snyder's. I can name a million, and I just kind of go with what I know. Now, will I always use Dakota Lithiums? No, I'm actually talking to other companies as well to showcase some of their stuff later on when the time comes. But for now, I want to have something both in me and Jeremy's boats, so that wherever we're at, we don't really have to worry about being broken down. And for us, that's kind of what it comes down to is it's expensive. We all know it is, but I didn't spend a little bit of money on a kayak to buy a battery that, wasn't going to do what I needed it to do because I need something that I can trust. I was the same way with Old Town. I'm the same way with Bonafide. I'm the same way with the G Loomis rods that I fish with. I put a little more in it, buy once, cry once, so I don't cry later. Yeah.
And that was, so the video, and that's funny you should talk about that because I remember watching iCast and I'd kind of known from talking to other people about the Titan X. The skiff, I knew the idea of it. I didn't know much about it, but I didn't know the PWR was not on my radar whatsoever. I had no idea. And I literally did a video where I did a comparison between the SS-127 and the New Canoe Unlimited. Both great boats, both do some similar things. And I said, out of the box, you get a better value with the Unlimited, with the SS-127, but the Unlimited has a higher ceiling if you're wanting to build it up and do all kinds of crazy stuff to it.
Oh, yeah.
And then literally like 2 weeks after I did that video, it came out of nowhere. They had it on their website. And I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, wait a minute. So, and I got a lot of questions because we got the Titan X 12.5 because they shipped the 12.5s out first.
Yep.
And we got the kayak before they actually had the official weight announced. And I think I've told this story a couple of times and I'll tell it a third, but they had the truck pull up and we didn't know what this thing was going to weigh. And it was in the very back of the truck. So the driver gets up, he's handing us, they're wrapped in like a t-shirt material. So you can't, and that thing hit me right in the chest, all 172 pounds of it. I'm like, there is no way that is 130, 140 pounds. And that 172 when the official weight came out.
Yeah.
But people are asking, and it's still the most stable kayak I've ever been in.
Oh, yeah.
But someone will say, well, what if I don't want the pedal drive? I'm like, well, this is before the PWR. And then now, like when they come out of that, and they got the bow motorization and the stern motors, and you got the power pole, the anchor pole setups.
Oh,
got all kinds of stuff on it. The access plates, the nice seat that goes high and low, and it's got rocker to it. So, and we were talking a little bit before we hit live, but when I've got it in the back of my truck, that kayak is rocking back and forth and I can hear it knocking back there. So I paddled it, and paddling it was remarkably easy. Having the foot control rudder with the paddle was really nice. And then I'm sitting there thinking in the back of my mind while I'm doing this video, wait until I get a motor on this, because I've always tell people, and I feel like this gets lost in the stability and motorized and customized discussion, is how well that moves to the water is going to equate into better motor performance.
Yep.
We all know about the Ascend 133, and it's literally like that floating dock. That thing ain't going nowhere. And you'll hear people say, I bought it from the store and got the motor and everything come with it, and their top speed's like 3.5 miles an hour. Yeah. I can paddle a kayak faster than that. Not that kayak, but still, I always tell people that your water performance means something. You want it to be stable. You want to be able to stand up on it. Yes, there's a lot of kayaks that'll do that, but moving that thing through the water, when it comes down to it, how hard do you want to work that motor? How hard do you want to work that battery? How long do you want it to take at full throttle to get you there? That stuff matters. But PWR, for what I do, again, we've got an RVR, and again, I'm not sponsored by Bonafide. They don't, they give me some shirts every now and then because I work at a store. But
and it took us 2 years to get those.
Yeah. Shout out to Obi, our rep. He handled it, but because river fishing is my passion. I like to fish, largemouth, but being on the river, having the scenery and the wildlife and catching fish, big fish is just what I grew up doing. It's what got me into kayaking, and taking her out on the river, and then now her just kind of seeing that, and then we've got a river kayak, we got a lake kayak.
Yep.
I want to talk about one thing because this was, I think, something that was so funny to me. What color are all of our kayaks that we have in the Bonafides?
Camo.
They're all camo.
What other color is there? I actually picked my hat out tonight because I knew we were talking about camo, Yeah, it's not like we want to be seen or anything. It's just camo is.
It just looks nice. It looks really
I think
nice.
so, yeah.
I like the blue, don't get me wrong, but the blue seemed to be what took off immediately.
Yep.
And there's so many people out there with that steel blue, which it looks great, but I kind of wanted something different. And when I saw the PWR and when they came out with the camo and the RVR, that was the stuff right there. So going, kind of moving away from Bonafide. And so, and somebody had asked about your experience with the Jackson NAR, and it's actually how I found your channel originally, is being among other things, being a Jackson dealer. And, kind of, I always like looking to see what other people are saying, not just what I think about it. Right. So you had a very unique and kind of almost dangerous experience there. So tell me a little bit about that whole experience. And you've done a video on it, obviously, but.
Yeah, and I didn't, and I tried not to dwell on it a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because once I made kind of my point, and then my experience with Jackson at the time, and the funny thing is, I'm actually friends with Eric Jackson, even though he's with Apex, with his new brand now. He still paddles every kayak tournament, and he's still the great outdoors. But he is a paddler at heart and always has been. But, he left Jackson, a while back and started his own other thing. But, yeah, I had a friend of mine here that's local to me that's like the guy who's their social marketing, director dude. And, he got me in early and was talking about, hey, dude, we're both like content creators here. We're in the same town. We can collab and go fish and do a lot of things together. And I work with Jackson Kayak, And I think this might have been before I got the paddle, somewhere in there. But I ended up going and selling to my Old Town and getting a somebody's asking about something.
I was kind of hearing that too. A little bit of feedback on your audio there. I didn't know. I thought we blew a speaker here or something, so that's what I was looking at.
Let me turn my volume down a little bit too, just to make sure I'm not, because a lot of people wear headphones and whatnot too. But I may have gone back and forgotten after the last to check and make sure it wasn't. It should have been noise canceling in studio in the setting.
I blame myself because I was a little arrogant in the very beginning about not having technical issues on here, and then here we go. It might be, I don't know, it might be the internet telling me to shut up too. You never know. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got my software running too. But so anyway, I was kind of in while they were designing the NAR, and I was led to believe it was going to be kind of like an upgraded. It's kind of like an upgraded big rig. But then they turned out not to use that platform, and they went with like a different boat model, and
we're still getting a lot of feedback there.
Yeah, I don't know if it could be my internet quality or what. It's hard telling.
There's no telling. I always upload the replay on it to where I do the local recordings here. So,
Okay.
yeah, we can go ahead and continue on. And again, those of you watching right now, I apologize for that, but we'll get you out a better replay here. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, because you're crystal clear on my end, so hopefully it's not my internet acting up.
That's new for us, so I'm just happy to be here, man.
But yeah, I mean, so they you know, I was like, you know, hey, cool, it'd be cool working with a kayak company, because it was before I ever tried to reach out to Old Town or anything like that. And you know, hey, somebody's interested in you know, working with me, and you know, whatever. I thought it was cool. So you know, I go through this stuff and you know, join the Orion Cooler staff and end up picking up a NAR. And yeah, let's just say it, you know, I knew going into it, and I was trying to be as fair as I could be, that, you know, anytime it's a brand new anything, there's always issues and kinks to be worked out. And to be fair, you know, Jackson, you know, replaced the first two that I had, said they were fixing the mold and this and that. And it was like, when I got the last one that I had, I was just like, it's just still not there. It's still not the weight capacity they thought it was going to be. I was actually the reason why they dropped the max weight from 475 down to 425. And then, you know, it's one of those things where I still don't think that they lowered it enough, because it was like, I wasn't, you know, I was carrying me and not much of anything in it, and it still just didn't perform. But all I wanted was, since I'd partnered with them, all I wanted was the money that I put into it back. And, you know, because they had me pick it up at a great paddle shop down in Kentucky, and loved those guys to death. They did everything. But this wasn't between me and the paddle shop. This was between me and Jackson. And a lot of people maybe misunderstood that, you know, I just went and bought this on a whim. No, I was actually working with Jackson Kayak. And so, you know, they wanted to do the whole restocking fee and this and that. And I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm done. I'm just going to go buy another Old Town and, you know, eat the cost and the trips and the gas and whatever. And, you know, I made my video as not so much of a crap on Jackson as it was a warning to big guys who may have been the target of the, you know, some of this, just saying, look, there's better options out there, you know, stay away from this one. If you're, you know, 220-pound guy and less. And, you know, but I didn't want to go on a full-on blast, because, you know, I was trying to be somewhat still respectful of the industry, that kayak shop in particular. And it's funny thing is, you know, I know a few other who had a NAR and then who got out of the NAR and went back to the Hobie and didn't really want to make a video blasting on it. But I understand that some people try to do YouTube as a full-time job. Yeah. And, you know, they may not be worth the squeeze for them. So yeah, I get it. But, you know, for me, if they'd have just put the thing, and I've said this in the past, they just, you know, put the NAR stuff in the big rig, they could have had a winner. And it seems like they brought the big rig back and didn't. And I'm just like, how can you guys be so oblivious to what the market wants these days?
And I'm a Jackson guy for the most part. I own a Jackson. You know, she was in a Jackson before, and we loved it. And we like the people that work there. It's just, you know, I always tell people I'm very, I've been hard on Jackson this year, but it comes from a place where me wanting them to succeed. And it's the same thing with Hobie. Hobie's taken a big couple of black eyes here this year, or then in the last few years, just in public opinion, from the pro angler issues with the 360 drive to some deck issues with the pro angler. Do they need to shore some things up? Absolutely, 100%. But you know, you're allowed to mess up or fail, because that's inevitable. That's where a lot of these great kayaks in the industry have come from, is trial and error. You know, what works, what don't, listening to your people. And I feel like there's a couple of companies out there. There's a couple of companies that don't really do that very well, and I think they're learning some things. But you know, it's not like they just got to listen to one person. They got to listen to the, you know, true pro staff, being professionals and, you know, giving good feedback. And in that company, listening to the feedback. I mean, you were a pro staff with Old Town. I'm sure you gave feedback. There's pros and cons to every kayak, which is definitely something I try to do when I'm talking about stuff, because there's no perfect kayak. There's no one kayak that does everything perfectly. They're usually geared toward one thing or the other. there's some kayaks that do both types of water really well, but I always ask people, that's the first question I ask them is, what kind of water are you floating on? Is it rivers or lake? And then if they say both, I still will say, what's your primary, there's going to be one you do a little bit more, and that'll ultimately kind of narrow things down. And, because you walk in a kayak shop that's got a lot of inventory, there's literally just so many different options and colors and ways you can go about it. It can really kind of feel a little daunting there. So.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I think I love the fact, like for me, for Old Town, it's like, some of my things were, it's like in the Old Town Sportsman line, even if without the pedal drive, you take your paddle kayaks, move some handles around. So if somebody wants to put a motor on there, they can. That's a popular thing. And so I would give basic stuff. Hey, you guys did this on this model, put this over here. And, this is feedback as somebody who is an old fat guy who lifts these things off a trailer or out of trucks all the time. I'm not here to be a yes man. I'm here trying to help you make things better. Yeah. And that's the only reason why I want to be a part of the pro stuff, is because I encourage people to buy these things because I believe in them. And, it's some things they listen, sometimes, sometimes they don't. Yeah. And sometimes they're just going to do what they're going to do. Ask me if I would have spent all the money on an e-pedal.
I think the ePDL, and again, I sell and represent Old Town among other things, and I think the ePDL is going to sell more autopilots. That's my opinion on it.
I think somebody who fishes offshore around a coast somewhere is going to love that ePedal, and you had to introduce it in something.
Yeah.
But why would you not put that in a Sportsman? Just saying, you just put it in a Sportsman. But, just little things but that's not stuff that they ask us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things. But I do think, personally, after, kind of looking around, because once I decided I want something that I could put on, do more river, fishing. And when the power came out, and of course, knowing Chad, knowing Gene, seeing what they run, knowing that Gene's like a lake guy, Chad's like a river guy, that boat can do either or pretty well. The only recommendation I have for them so far was make a bigger aftermarket rudder for those who want to throw an XI3 on the front. Yeah. If you're paddling in the creeks and whatnot, the rudder in it's perfect, but make a bigger blade. That's one thing that Old Town did great, was come out with a bigger blade eventually. And it just keeps you from, the wind blowing you around if you're trying to do stuff. But Hans, if you're listening, love what you did. And I've heard rumors of other things, in the mix and the works too, and that's kind of cool because people now, and you just never know. And but for me, the power has been a blessing. Like I said, today was my very first experience of putting Newport on it. And I had an absolute blast just running around on the river for a couple hours today. But now I'm getting into river mode, and I'm gonna go start chasing smallies all over the state, and have fun doing it.
And I think one of the coolest things about the fact that you've taken yours out on the river now is that we now have confirmation, because we haven't had time to take the PWR out on the rivers
or the water. Yeah.
But it's been one of our struggles. We have 5 kayaks sitting in our garage right now because we both have a river kayak. We both have a lake fishing kayak. We have another kayak that needs repairs and has ended up in our garage. Yeah. And knowing that there's one kayak that can do it all and does it well is kind of a big thing. And I think we've seen it in the comments tonight. Bonafide has knocked it out of the park this year with that kayak.
Yeah. And this is their year. And like we were talking about, it's cyclical. It'll cycle. But the last 2 years, because I would argue that Bonafide was probably one of the more stagnant brands before last year. They had the SS series, they had the EX123, and the SS series is a solid boat. It continues to sell well today, at least for us. But we give feedback. I mean, I probably give a little too much feedback sometimes with our reps, but I'd say, hey, we're very creek and river heavy here. That may not be the same overall in the overall scope of things for them, but that was something I've talked about with Jackson Kayak is, you guys kind of pioneered the river fishing kayak with the Coosa.
Yep.
And then now it's kind of, you got New Canoe with the Flint, you got Bonafide with the RVR, and you got Crescent with the Shoaly.
Oh yeah.
There's not really, and then of course they come out with the Coosa X, and I say, well, the Coosa X, while it's a great boat, it's not really designed, I think, for what the Coosa filled in the gap that they filled. It's a little bit more of a bigger water boat, maybe wider rivers, but skinny water, really curvy waters like we have around here. It sells decent, but they're still going toward, the RVR. That thing has just flown off the shelves for us. And, you got something you can put a motor on if you choose to. In the stern, you got anchoring, tubing. Again, it's not perfect. My only complaint really about the RVR was the Anchor Wizard canister is so close to the seat. If you're not careful, you'll get the little scar on your. See if,
not focusing.
Whatever.
It's staying on, Christy.
we both have the same scar though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize I did it.
I just learned a little quicker than he did, so mine's not that bad.
I got on that Smalley bite, and they're hitting top water. I'm not thinking about pain. I'm looking over at that spot, and I'm just winding that thing.
Oh yeah,
rubbing against the edge of that seat. And when we got home, I had a hole in my finger just from doing it too much. But I still love the kayak. I thought enough of it to, with our own money buying it. And that's kind of what I tell people, these are the things that I choose to spend money on, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing for everybody. I would really like to see more river and creek, because doesn't have to be fishing, just recreational. Recreational kayaks that you can maybe throw a rod on. There's a few of them out there, but there's just not as much. Everybody's gone out and bought their large lake fishing kayak, the Pro Angler, their Big Rig, their SS 107, their New Canoe Unlimited. But we're starting to see a trend, at least me personally, where you're starting to see people kind of wanting to go back to that lighter throw and go kayak.
Yep.
And I think that's where it's going to go, is you're going to, for one, have value. So what are you getting for the money you're paying? You see that in the PWR. You also see that in the Titan-X. I mean, it's hard to call a $3,600 kayak value, but compared to what's out there in that top pedal drive space and what you can do with it, it really is. The trade-off is it's heavy.
Well, even these days where you have a lot of people that are still apartment living. Yeah. And, you have the inflatables that, like, my son lives up in Indy. He lives right up against the White River where all of this beautiful smallies are in the state. Yeah. But he's like, I got nowhere I can put a kayak because I'm in an apartment, And I'm like, bro, you might want to start looking at an inflatable, because that's still something you can take out on the river. Jeff Little has proven that, there's some quality stuff out there, and you can still go get your fish on, but do it something, that it's easier to pack away and store versus, having someplace like me where I stick them in the garage up on the shelves and kayak trailers as well too. Cause, I've got a 3 kayak trailer, hauler, and I've got, a 117 or an RS 117 that's my buddy Matt's using right now, but his warranty replacement came in, picked it up from Moving Waters yesterday in camo. And then, so I'll get that back probably tomorrow. And then we have another kayak that got donated as a veteran boat, and that's where my XI3 is going to go on once I get a plate from One Objective to put the XI3 up on the front of that, and then that'll be a nice boat that somebody can get in and not have to worry about it if they're wheelchair bound or whatever. It'll be hand controlled for them too. So I've just separated. That's going to be a whole separate setup. Then the Newport staying where it's at. My spot locker will be an Anchor Wizard if I need it. So
yeah, absolutely. So, and then again, you're talking about your work with Heroes on the Water, wasn't it?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm working with a gentleman here local to Arkansas, and really kind of hoping that works out. But a gentleman named Levi, I'd definitely like to have you on in the chat at least. So I got Chad Hoover on next weekend, and then the weekend after we'll have Levi on. Levi works with a company called Rivers to Recovery.
Okay.
And met this kid. I say kid. I mean, he's a grown man. He war veteran, injured war veteran.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got the glass eye. Everything. He's had a rough time of it, and he contacted me at the shop, and we gave him some pedal drive kayaks. So what he does is they take veterans who are suffering from PTSD or disabled vets. Yep. And they take them on guided fishing trips. The community we live in here does, we have the White River, what it's called here, but it's just a world-class trout fishery. So they'll do guided fishing trips. But a lot of times the fishing trips are so far in advance, they wanted the ability to get veterans in kayaks that are struggling right now. And I just really, really excited to get Levi on. I hope that works out here. But, definitely would like to have you on as well, just to kind of, throw some questions on there. And I'm looking forward to that one because I know the cause. We've done some stuff with Heroes on the Water at a couple of other shops here in Northwest Arkansas. And those, I'm again, most of my family served. Ironically, my dad was actually the one who talked me out of it. He was a World War II vet, believe it or not. He was older than my mother was, and I definitely kind of have experience with seeing the PTSD, whether it be through people of the Vietnam War that I know very well and still talk to this day, and then obviously that generation going through the Depression and the Second World War, and their folks were probably fresh out of the First World War, and hearing them talk about that, it just really always gave me, even at a young age, such almost a hero aura of veterans. So I definitely thank you for your service. Any of you in the comments, any of you watching, any service that you've done, whether it's here domestically or abroad, definitely appreciate each and everything you do and continue to do for veterans and for this country and for kayak fishing. We're coming up on about an hour and a half. JT, man, I really enjoyed talking with you, man. I appreciate you coming on here, and I definitely hope that people tuning in enjoyed as well. I definitely think they will. But
it's definitely a pleasure. I'll have to get you guys on a Gramps Live one of these days. It's just like I keep saying, it's like I got to get a hold of so and so and so and so, and then it's just like I want to go fish.
Yeah, man. I've been on that night bite here lately, man. I just saw the mainstream fishing here, and I've seen Chad doing some night fishing pictures. And
Austin have been spanking some donkeys out there. Austin just got his first double digit.
I saw that. Yeah.
So they've been on fire, and they keep telling me it's time to get my butt back down there, and I'm like, soon. Yeah. I told everybody I've been super crazy busy because I took a promotion at work. But to backfill that, they had to create 2 positions to backfill behind me. But I couldn't let any of that workload go to anybody else until they hire these 2 positions, because they consider it unfair advantage if somebody was to write on those jobs. So I've been sitting here working 3 different jobs, getting to the same pay.
Yeah.
but hopefully they always, everybody thinks, working for the government's super easy. I'm an IT security guy. There's no such thing as super easy.
Yeah, there's no such thing as easy in government.
But as soon as I get a couple more people hired and trained and offloaded, my stress levels will be way farther down. And then I really want to start getting out and doing more adventure fishing. I want to do a Bassmaster event. I want to do a Kayak Adventure Series event. And again, that's not to go win or do anything, but it's just to go on the adventure. I mean, how cool would it be to go fish a Bassmaster event, to say that you fish a Bassmaster event, So there's a lot, just because, I mean, I'll go do it one time. And I'm part of me is like, I might try to go do that up at the Susky and try to get on some of those giant smallies up there just to see if I can't get lucky and catch a big one.
Absolutely, man. Well, JT, man, appreciate you again for your time, and definitely look forward to having you on in the future. And you know, you ever got a spot you really want to just bore your audience with, man, I'm all for it.
Oh yeah, we'll get you on. We'll get you guys on 100%. No,
All
I
right,
love
man.
what you guys do. You have taken a paddle shop and made it cool on YouTube.
Sweet.
And, you know, we need people who know all this stuff and things, because me, Wendell, all these other guys, we're sharing our experiences as we learn them. It's nice to have somebody out there who's experienced in these things that can look at, you know, kind of help ease the pain along the way, and not just be like a salesman when they do it. You're coming from a good place. You're coming from, you know, experience, and it shows. And that's why you're growing so fast. And, you know, it won't take long at all. Of course you did, Cairo. It's my girl right there.
And that's the thing I tell people is me on YouTube. You know, I'm talking about all this stuff. When you come to that front door, I'm gonna get you.
That's the job.
We don't work on commission. So I said, I'm definitely lucky to work for people that just get it.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you come in, and that's the way I can't speak for all paddle shops on how they pay their employees, but, you know, I always tell people that, you know, we don't work on commission, but man, if we worked on commission, we'd be starving to death in the winter and the summer and the late fall. So, but literally, you know, and you kind of touched on a little bit. I know I'm trying to end this and I keep talking there, but supporting that local paddle shop is something that a lot of people think that maybe it's one of the few industries that you don't have to pay more to shop local.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you're buying it on an Amazon or online, and there's some manufacturers that I respect a lot that are doing direct to customer, and I know why they're doing it, and it's nothing personal, but I tell them you're actually hurting your paddle shops that are pushing your product, and there's less and less of them. That's less satellite offices to push your product, and we're the front lines. We are the ones taking care of your warranties. That was actually the one thing when I saw your NAR video that I was thinking, the first thing I jumped at was, that just sounds like really poor paddle shop customer service, but kind of learning the backstory there on what you said.
There was a little more to the back. And that, like I said, that paddle shop was absolutely wonderful. Those guys did everything. I would, you know, I still send anybody like in southern Indiana and Kentucky over there. Everybody else in my state, I send up to Moving Water Outfitters in Zionsville, Indiana, because they're like you. They sell the same brands, offer the same great customer support. So, you know, I push them, and hey, anybody in the Arkansas area, you know who to go see. So
we're selling a product too that we have tremendous support from the manufacturers, and that it makes it. I've been in management before, in sales, most of my working career, and it's the first time I'm selling product that I feel like I have complete control over.
Yeah.
So if something's wrong, I can fix it. If something doesn't go right, I can fix it. If you just don't like it, if it's not what I said it is or you thought it was, we can fix it. And I feel like 99% of places can do that also. And it just, you know, if somebody's never been to a paddle shop, even if it's, you know, a couple hours away, supporting those people, that is going to be a worthwhile drive. You might just enjoy yourself. So
mine is 90 minutes away, and I gladly make that drive up to Moving Waters. And one thing I tell everybody, you can't go to a box store and try a kayak out, and you're not going to know if you like a kayak until you get in it and paddle it and learn about it. You might not like the seat. Don't make $1,000 mistake when you don't have to. Go find your paddle shop. Everybody has demo days. Go get in several different ones. I know people saw me and Jeremy in the power that was in the pool up at the state fair. You know, up at the state fair, and that was when we knew that was going to be the one. Jeremy standing up, and you know, and then you know, even I was in it, and we were like, "I'm sold. This is the one. Can't wait." You know, but thanks again for having me on, folks.
No problem, man.
I can talk. That's what I'm good at. That's why I'm good at YouTube.
Hey, take it easy, JT. Appreciate you.
All right, y'all take care. Good night, everybody. As always, get outside when you can and make some memories. One cast at a time.